As educators, we often hear the African proverb that it takes a village to raise a child. As educators, we know that it truly does take a community working together to achieve the best learning outcome for students. In this video, I'm sharing information relating to Teacher Leader Model Standard Domain 6, Improving Outreach and Collaboration with Families and Communities, in which the teacher leader understands that families, cultures, and communities have a significant impact on educational processes and student learning. As teachers, we know that family engagement is important because when developed, it leads to improvements in many educational areas. For example, learning literacy skills at an earlier age. It can lead to higher assessment scores, higher attendance rates, better social skills, as well as a higher rate of not only acceptance to, but attendance at a higher educational institute. Parents often find themselves entering the middle school years not knowing where they fit in, much like their child. Their student seems to have begun to grow more autonomous, and the schools seem to run that way as well. Teachers in schools tend to stop the process of relationship building as they lean toward the basic involvement of families. As the definition explains, they are included in participation as a necessary part. There are select routine events that parents are invited to participate in, for instance, chaperoning field trips, attending assemblies, or back-to-school night. We often add them to events as part of a checklist without knowing how to truly reach the definition of engagement. How do we attract their interest and attention while building a place for collaboration? Through my experience as both a teacher and a parent, I have awkwardly stood on both sides of the line, and that has allowed me to gather this information. Beginning with, what does one need to know to begin on the path to collaboration? It often feels that parents and families are the missing piece of the puzzle to having a successful classroom or school. We are not the first teachers that parents and families have come in contact with. We need to honor their prior experiences with schools. Historically, schools have done a great job of training parents that the only time we call home is when their student is in trouble. Knowing that our families are coming to our classroom or school with that former history is actually a benefit. Clearing up biases on both sides will lead to better relationship building and will provide a springboard for all further interaction. As I mentioned earlier, middle school is a time when parents start withdrawing the helicopters and allowing their student to experience some freedoms. This too is a time when schools increasingly need the support in providing the best instruction and support for their child. In the midst of these changes, families can often misidentify school actions as roadblocks, keeping them from fully engaging with the school. Fostering relationships, sometimes rebuilding or regaining trust with families, has to be a paramount goal for us every school year. Communication is key in maintaining these newly formed relationships. And much like the multiple intelligences we serve in our classroom, parents need multiple access points for effective communication to take place. Be sure to base your communication style around the expectations and prior experiences of your family. Be aware of parent climate towards using technology. Not everyone loves it. One of the misidentified roadblocks that is easily avoided is the language or cultural barriers between families and schools. Being aware of the many languages that are spoken and cultural practices taking place in the homes of our families is a great first step. But we need to reach beyond that. Try to have teachers or staff trained in tools that allow schools to provide as much primary language access as possible, as well as adopting any cultural norms in your classroom. Additionally, we should try to meet our families' availability. There are time restrictions. Many of our families work the hours that we're in school. Therefore, it is imperative to plan some before or after school hours opportunities for parents to fit into their schedules. Getting our families on campus often is the first step. With each of these activities, you'll be helping families gather tools for support outside of the classroom. Whatever new tool or resource you make available in your class, whether it's morning with the teacher or family game night in your room, be sure that your resource is sustainable. Check both your schedule and the school calendar to be sure there's no conflict in setting up future dates. Be aware of any facilities requests that you must make at your school site. You may also want to consider asking other teachers if they want to join you. Joining forces always lightens the workload. Some helpful resources that have proven effective in my classroom are social media tools like Class Dojo or Kidum, which allow you to not only make posts about upcoming events or homework for the night, it also allows you to private message parents and for families to monitor student behavior. Another great tool I've used is having a parent night every quarter. Consider events like breakfast with the teacher, workshops relating to the content you're teaching. Trust me, parents want to help with homework, but can be intimidated. Here is your chance to empower them. You may even want to host a family game night in your classroom. This will make the families feel armed with the tools to support their students' success at home. We can also use these parent nights to focus on school-wide needed areas of concern, like literacy or math. Finally, an organization in which I've worked with, named Families in Schools, offers professional development and classes for parents and school staff regarding engagement. They also offer a reading program twice a year that incentivizes reading for families. Now, even if your first attempt has a lackluster results, remain focused on the most important reason you're building these relationships: student learning outcomes. Once you've tried to hold an event and the turnout wasn't what you expected, you may be tempted to throw in the towel. You need to remember those previous experiences that our parents have had with schools and meet their resistance with persistence. We need to follow through on our word, and if we make engagement possible for parents, word will spread, and over time your numbers of parents attending will grow. After you have come to build these relationships and engage parents, remember to celebrate together. Celebrate their wins, the students' successes. Celebrate growth that's happened in families. Celebrate their accomplishments in school as well as out of school. Build that same community with your families that you strive to build with your students. After all of these, there's still more work to be done. We should give the 3 R's of education new meaning: reflect, and request. We must reflect on the time that we spend. We reflect individually on what we felt worked and didn't work. Where do roadblocks remain, and how can we refine our practice for the future? We also need to reflect with the community, opening a dialogue between families and schools to reflect on successes and gather their suggestions about moving forward. We also need to request data from those teachers that we work with about how you facilitated the meeting, if it interfered with any of their activities. We need to request data from our parents and families who participated in the engagement process throughout the whole year. We also need to survey families who did not participate and see if there's anything we can do to remove any further roadblocks. Finally, we need to request data from our students. We need to allow them to have a voice in engagement. They need to have a voice in the engagement of their parents and the effects it's had on their lives. Sometimes this is the most meaningful feedback. Also consider comparing test data to monitor the impact before and after family engagement. This may be just what your school site needs to give this domain more focus. As a parent, I thank you for the effort you're making towards strengthening these relationships. And as a teacher, well, I hope to see you at my next parent night.